These are the new metal releases for June 5th, 2026. I have 10 albums to talk about. It will be a mix of genres as usual. I have some thrash metal, death metal, metalcore, and a live album worth talking about. So let's get into it. First band that I have is Embryonic Autopsy, and the album is Rise of the Mutated. This is the third album from the band, and it's the final chapter in a sci-fi trilogy. Think of some very sick and vile death metal and just turn up all the disgusting elements and then mix in this sci-fi narrative, and that's pretty much what you get here. It was released on June 5th, 2026 via Massacre Records, and the lineup features vocalist Tim King of the bands Oppressor and Soil, and guitarist Scott Roberts from OTEP, and there are some guest guitar solos from a few death metal legends, such as James Murphy, who you probably know from the bands Death, Obituary, and Testament. He appears on 4 tracks, and Terrence Hobbs of Suffocation, he appears on 1 track. It's not a long album, it's only 10 tracks, it's about 35 minutes long. The song titles are even very disgusting sounding. I'll read some of the cleaner ones, but they include Aborted Within the Aztec Temple and Rise of the Mutilated, The Newborn Kings, and it's for fans of brutal death metal such as Suffocation or others. I thought it was okay. For me, it's a 7.5 out of 10. It could be higher if you're into this style of music. Next is the band Soul Exchange with Slow Descent. It's the band's debut EP released via 1126 Records, and they play metallic hardcore. They're based in Austin, Texas. The EP features 5 tracks, clocks in at roughly 15 minutes. Sound is a mix of heavy grooves, fast pummeling riffs, and dynamic vocal transitions. Sound is mostly raw metallic hardcore. They also include melodic clean vocals on tracks like In the Room But Not With Me and the title track. And they can be compared to bands like Kubla Khan Texas, Knocked Loose, and Frozen Soul. The EP opens with Exchange Rate, a short, explosive intro track establishing the record's heavy tone. Familiar Poison is an aggressive, fast-paced extension of the opener, featuring guest vocals from punk and hardcore band Discourage. In the Room But Not With Me blends heavy groove and clean vocal sections towards the end. Cash and Cold Hands was the lead single, features crushing riffs, a guitar solo, and guest vocals from Taylor Young of Disgrace and Twitching Tongues. And the final song is called Slow Descent, an atmospheric title track and closer featuring clean vocals. I thought it was pretty cool. You could tell the band is just getting started. Song's very good, and I can appreciate the old school album cover art. My score will be 8 out of 10. Next is Belushi Sweetball with Toxic Waste Was Everywhere in the 80s. This is the 4th full-length studio album by the Louisville, Kentucky crossover thrash band, released on June 5th, 2026. As you can tell from the band's name, they don't take themselves seriously. They write songs about 90s pop culture, including The Toxic Avenger and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and song titles and lyrics have a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor. The record introduces the recording debut of bassist Justin McClure and drummer Ben Cotton. The album features cover art painted by iconic extreme metal illustrator Andrei Buzikov, and he is the guy who does all the artwork for the band Municipal Waste. The album was also mixed and mastered by Chase Bensing, and the album has 12 tracks packed with fast riffs, hardcore punk aggression, and a few comedic skits. Like I said, the album titles are very clever. Few examples are How Tough Am I? That's of Mighty Fine Wayne Gretzky, and I'm Not Your Buddy Guy. Key tracks include I Ought to Not Know or I Ought Not Know, which was the lead single. It humorously tackles how actor Dave Coulier was allegedly the inspiration behind Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know, and how he would react if he were a pizza-loving thrash metal guitarist. The album ends with a short skit and a song called Captain Planet, which is a skit, and the closing track, Captain Planet Still Can't Stop Us. So the skit is about that 90s echo superhero, but this time Captain Planet is not a hero. He's this antagonist trying to stop the band from polluting the world with their music. It's a fun album, not to be taken seriously, but if you like crossover thrash, which I do, you will like this, so I liked it. My score, 8.5 out of 10. I have Swedish melodic metal supergroup Cyhra or Cyhra, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The album is called Requiem for a Pipe Dream. It's their fourth full-length studio album, released June 5th, 2026 via Reigning Phoenix Music. The album also marks the band's 10th anniversary. The album was made during a period of uncertainty, rebuilding after the pandemic, and there were disruptions that stole the band's momentum. There are themes of inner warfare, resilience, and transforming personal scars into a source of pride rather than shame. The band plays a mix of modern melodic groove metal with big arena rock hooks. The lineup includes Jake E. on vocals and keys, formerly of Amaranth, Jesper Stromblad on guitars and bass from The Halo Effect, formerly of In Flames, Yus Valervita on guitars, bass, keyboards from the band Suburban Tribe, Marcus Sunesen on guitars from the band The Crown, and Alex Landenberg on drums from the band Camelot. A few of the songs were re-recorded, such as Superman, Skin from Bones, and Mark of My Sins. I like a few of the songs. I like the opening track, Bleed with Pride. It was one of the heavier tracks. Still had a melodic sound, and there were a few tracks that sounded too much like modern pop, which I didn't like as much. For example, there was the second track, Miss Me When I'm Gone. I didn't like that one as much. But there's a cool power ballad. It sounds like it came right out of the 80s, called In the Center of a Miracle. For me, this one's a 7 out of 10. A little mixed for me. I like some of the songs, but some of the songs with that more modern pop sound brought it down. But it's not too bad. Next is Converge with Home of Hurt. It's a 12th full-length studio album by iconic American metalcore pioneer Converge, released June 5th, 2026 via Epitaph Records and Deathwish Incorporated, and the band's second full-length album of 2026, arriving just 4 months after Love Is Not Enough, released in February. The album is conceptually inspired by the hum, which is a real-world, mysterious, low-frequency noise that only a small percentage of the population can hear. Frontman Jacob Bannon reimagined this phenomenon through the bleak, empathetic lens, he said, and I quote, "What if the hum is a culmination of all the pain in the world, creating an audible signal across the universe?" The album artwork visually reflects this emotional collapse, depicting an EKG heartbeat signal skipping and being violently disrupted by a central seismic event. Even though the album was written during the same sessions as Love Is Not Enough, the band says that Hum of Hurt is not a sequel, and the two albums feature distinct sonic identities, whereas Love Is Not Enough leans strictly towards that raw, fast, metal-infused mathcore, while Hum of Hurt delivers a more atmospheric and dynamic emotional hardcore, noise rock sound, and in my opinion, I think Hum of Hurt is the better album of the two, but it might just be my personal preference. The album has 10 tracks, it's 33 minutes long. Some key tracks include I Won't Let You Go, which is a newly tracked Superior studio rendition of their 2020 song from the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack. There's also Dream Debris, which is a massive hypnotic 6-minute structural standout featuring tribal rhythms. And there is also It Used to Matter, a slow, tear-jerking 2.5-minute instrumental break. And like I said, better than the last album from a few months ago. My score will be 8.5 out of 10. Next is August Burns Red with Season of Surrender. This is the 11th studio album by American metalcore band August Burns Red, released June 5th, 2026. It's their first studio release after re-signing with Fearless Records. According to vocalist Jake Lurs, the album represents a personal exploration of self-sabotage, trauma, and healing. The ultimate theme of the album asks what happens if the trauma, or what happens if you give the trauma up? What happens if you heal from it? Musically, the album is less experimental, with a return to their old-school sound of the early 2000s. The album has 11 tracks. It's 44 minutes long, and there are a few guests on the album as well. The opening track is called Legions, featuring Mike Haranica of Devil Wears Prada. Song's very intense, comes right out the gate with the band's signature aggressive sound. And there's also Behemoth, which was the lead single, featuring lots of classic guitar riffs. And there's a song, Cerebral Malfunction, featuring the band Make Them Suffer. The album closes with Forger by Failure, which is almost 7 minutes long and has a very atmospheric sound, as well as a heavy breakdown at the end. Overall, it's a decent album from the band. I'm not the biggest fan of the band, as metalcore is not one of my go-to genres, but I could say it's a strong album from them. I will give it 8 out of 10. Next is Revolting with Supernatural Anthems. They are a Swedish old school death metal band. This is their 10th studio album. The album was released on June 4th, 2026 via Extreme Music. The band plays that classic Swedish death metal with songs about horror and gore, that classic HM2 sound. The band is a three-piece featuring Roger Johansson on vocals and guitars, bassist Grotesque Tobias, and drummer Mutated Martin. The album clocks in at over 30 minutes, and the entire album is very intense. The album features that classic rotten buzzsaw sound of the early 1990s Swedish death metal with a heavy crust-punk influence. There are also thick melodic grooves and a very B-movie horror atmosphere, and they can be compared to bands like Nihilist, Grave, Autopsy, Dismember. Some key tracks include Supernatural Anthem. The opening track sets the tone. At Dusk Did Rise, the first single, Undead Wife, Happy Life, has a very tongue-in-cheek song title, and the track Dungeon Overture, where they slow down, get really heavy. Overall, some classic old-school death metal. My score is an 8 out of 10. Next is The 69 Eyes. It's an EP called I Survive. I had never heard of this band before, but they've been around since 1992, and they have never had a lineup change. They are a Finnish goth and roll band, something along the lines of Bauhaus or Killing Joke. And the opening track, I Survive, features Steve Stevens, who has played with Billy Idol for many years. There's a cover of the Thin Lizzy song called Sweat, which was pretty cool. And the track The Misery, produced by Matt Hynden, has a classic hard rock sound. The closing track features Ed Mondell, formerly of Monster Magnet, and has a cool psychedelic rock sound. I thought it was a pretty cool EP. They have an interesting sound. The frontman's name is Jerky69, and he has a very gravelly baritone vocal style. There are lots of hard rock guitar riffs and blistering solos, and I will need to check out some of the other albums by this band. For now, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a small sample of what the band does. Next, I have my Dark Horse album of the week and my personal favorite. The album is called Against All Warnings, and it is the second full-length studio album by Vancouver, British Columbia-based thrash metal power trio W.M.D, which stands for When Minds Develop. Independently released on June 5th, 2026, it's their first full-length effort in 8 years following 2018's Lethal Revenge, and the record has an aggressive old-school thrash sound heavily inspired by classic Exodus, Overkill, and Anthrax, although in my opinion, I feel the band's sound leans more towards technical and progressive thrash. The album features songs about the destructive side of human nature. One of the main themes includes the endless pursuit for more, where nothing ever feels good enough, and the band recently faced some adversity where they had to deal with some lineup changes that left founding guitarist and vocalist Skylar Mills as the sole original member. The album also marks the recording debut of the band's new rhythm section featuring bassist John Power and drummer Ryan Idris. The album consists of 9 tracks featuring some notable guest appearances. Some key tracks include Eyes of a Killer. That was a high-intensity opener and primary single, and there's also Against All Warnings, the title track, featuring a blazing guest guitar solo by Kai Sakaguchi, and there are a few other tracks with guest solos by Casey Trask. This was my favorite album of the week. It's just a really good thrash album with progressive leanings. It's very technical. I liked it a lot. My score, 9 out of 10. I have one more album. I usually don't talk about live albums, but this one's worth talking about. The album is from Voivod. It's called Symphony or Symphonique. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's a live album recorded in collaboration with the Quebec Symphony Orchestra, released June 5th, 2026 via Century Media Records. The album was recorded live on June 4th, 2025, so about a year ago, at the Grand Theatre in Quebec City, Canada. And the album brings together Voivod's signature dystopian, discordant thrash with this full 73-minute orchestral ensemble. There's a mix of old new songs, such as the opening track, Experiment from Dimension Hatros. There's Holographic Thinking from their later album, the 2022 album, Synchroanarchy, and the album ends with Astronomy Domini, which is a very stellar, symphonically charged cover of the Pink Floyd classic. I thought it was a pretty cool album. I don't always like it when metal bands mix with orchestras, but I think Voivod has such a very unique sound that their sound is actually enhanced by the orchestra. So another one of my favorites, and I would give it 8.5 out of 10. That is all for new metal releases this week. Check out last week's episode. I will stick it right there. Thanks for watching. Please like the video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.